In my short life, I have had my fair share of troubles, but not once in my life I thought that it would get this bad. I have so much to tell you guys, so please bear with me because you will need a backstory to see where I'm coming from. 2 months ago, when my dad walked out on us, everything changed. I had always thought our family was solid, but his departure shattered that illusion. My mom struggled to cope, and I watched her go through a whirlwind of emotions. She oscillated between sadness, anger, and a desperate attempt to hold it all together for my younger brother, Jake. He was the apple of her eye, the golden child, and I often felt like an afterthought. In those 2 months, Mom threw herself into work, barely home, leaving me to take care of Jake and manage the household. I thought we were all just coping in our own ways, trying to adjust to our new reality. But then, exactly 2 months after Dad left, Mom dropped another bombshell. She was getting married again. His name was Robert, and apparently they had been seeing each other for a while. How could she move on so quickly? Didn't she care about how this would affect us? But Mom was adamant. She said Robert made her happy and that we should be happy for her too. It felt like a betrayal. Dad had left us, and here she was moving on as if we were just a footnote in her life. The wedding came together in a rush, with my mom practically floating through the planning. Jake was thrilled, of course, and that made it even harder for me. I was stuck in a strange limbo, feeling like I was losing her all over again. On the day of the wedding, I was expected to be there, to smile and support my mom. It was a small, rushed affair. Jake seemed excited about having a new dad, but I couldn't bring myself to feel the same way. But the moment I met her new husband, I felt the weight of disapproval in his gaze. Something about Robert just didn't sit right with me. He was always extra nice when Mom was around, but when she wasn't, he'd give me this cold, calculating look. He was charming enough on the surface, but I sensed that he viewed me as a problem. My instincts were right. As soon as the ceremony ended, he pulled my mom aside and spoke to her in hushed tones. I stood there, feeling invisible. That night, my mom called me into the living room. I thought she might want to talk about how everything was going, but instead, she told me that she and her new husband had decided it would be best for me to move out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom said that Robert felt I was a negative influence on the family and that my attitude problem was causing tension in their marriage. She said it would be best for everyone if I found my own place to live. I was crushed. My own mother was choosing her new husband over me. This was my home too, and I felt betrayed. Jake stayed, of course. He was younger than me, plus my mom would never dream of throwing him out. I packed my bags in silence, my heart racing as I realized the finality of it all. I had nowhere to go, but I couldn't stay in a house where I wasn't wanted. As I walked out, I took one last look at the place I had called home, tears streaming down my face. I didn't understand how my mom could choose him over me. After I was thrown out of my own home, the only person I could think to call was my Aunt Jo, my bio dad's sister. I hadn't spoken to her much over the years, mostly because my mom and her didn't get along. Despite that, I was desperate. When I explained what happened, she didn't hesitate. She welcomed me into her home. I tried to be grateful, I really did, but stepping into her house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong. Aunt Jo had her own life, her own family. Her husband, Tom, was polite but distant, probably unsure how to react to an 18-year-old suddenly becoming a part of their daily lives. They had 2 kids of their own, my cousins, who were younger and took up most of her attention. The house always felt full, people moving in and out, meals shared around the table, but I remained an outsider in their warmth. I couldn't join in with their stories, their laughter, or the familiarity they had with each other. I started to notice the little things. Aunt Jo and her family were kind, but they had their own routines and their own dynamics. I felt guilty every time I needed something. The few times I had to ask for help, whether it was to borrow money for a bus fare or ask Tom for a ride, I felt like a burden. Aunt Jo reassured me that I was welcome, but I could sense the strain. It wasn't intentional, but I knew I was taking up space that they needed for themselves. Every meal I ate and every shower I took felt like a reminder that I wasn't supposed to be there. On top of that, I was trying to juggle everything else. I had to finish high school, but the motivation was slipping away. I used to care about grades, about college, but now it felt like a distant dream buried under the immediate need to survive. Every day I forced myself to go to school, pretending like everything was normal, but it wasn't. I had been thrown out by my own mother, left to fend for myself in a house that wasn't mine, with no idea what the future held. To make matters worse, I had to work part-time at a diner just to make ends meet. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the only place that would hire someone like me with no real experience. The hours were long and the customers weren't always kind, but I needed the money. I was saving every penny I could to get out of Aunt Jo's house. It didn't matter how much it hurt or how little sleep I got. I had to leave. I needed my own space. Then, on the morning after my birthday, I received a call that I never expected. It came from a lawyer claiming to represent my biological father. That name, my dad, felt foreign to me. Ever since he walked out on us, I had erased him from my life, never once thinking he'd reach out again. Yet here I was, holding the phone as the lawyer told me my father wanted to meet with me. Apparently, he had something important to discuss. At first, I was angry. The memories of him leaving without a trace still burned fresh in my mind. He had abandoned me, left me to fend for myself in a situation that only got worse with Mom and Robert. Why should I even listen to him now? But the curiosity clawed at me. He was the only one who knew the truth behind why he left. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet with him at the lawyer's office the following day. Walking into that office felt surreal. I didn't know what I was walking into, and every part of me braced for disappointment. Then I saw him, my dad, sitting at a conference table looking older and worn down. His face carried more lines than I remembered, his posture defeated. Time had changed him. It was as if life had weighed him down in ways I couldn't fully grasp at first. He started talking, and I sat there, stiff and guarded, waiting for whatever excuses he would throw my way. He began by apologizing, saying he regretted leaving, that he knew he had made a terrible mistake. His words felt empty at first, but then he said something that stopped me cold. He was dying. Dad explained that shortly before he left us, he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. That was when he decided to leave. Not because he didn't love us, but because he couldn't bear the thought of us watching him deteriorate. He said he believed that leaving was the best way to protect us from watching him suffer. I sat there, numb, barely able to process it. He had left, not out of indifference or selfishness, but out of fear. Fear that we wouldn't be able to handle his illness, that he was somehow sparing us pain by disappearing. And yet his absence had caused far more pain than any illness ever could. As he continued talking, he revealed something that left me reeling even more. He had learned shortly before leaving that my mother had been involved with Robert, long before the divorce was finalized, even before Dad's illness became known. They had been having an affair behind his back, and she had manipulated him into thinking that he was the problem. He told me that Mom had convinced him it was better for him to leave, that his illness would just complicate things, and that she was moving on for everyone's sake. In his weakened state, already grappling with the terminal diagnosis, he had believed her. He left, not because he didn't care, but because Mom had pushed him out and made him feel like it was the right thing to do. Looking back, I could now see why she had remarried Robert so quickly after Dad left. It all made sense in a sick way. The puzzle pieces fell into place, and it explained so much of the tension I had felt growing up. But understanding it didn't mean forgiving, not yet. I was still angry at him for leaving, angry at Mom for her manipulation, angry at the world for handing me this twisted situation. Dad's reasons, however painful and complex, didn't erase the abandonment I had felt all this time. After dropping this bombshell, the lawyer stepped in and started to explain why this meeting had really been arranged. Dad had been following my life from afar, watching as things with Mom and Robert spiraled out of control. He knew about how I had been thrown out, how I had struggled to make ends meet, working at the diner while trying to finish school. He said he had been furious when he found out about how Mom and Robert had treated me. He wanted to make amends, though he knew there was no undoing the damage. Then came the real shock. Dad had set up a trust fund for me. Apparently, despite everything, he had been working and making some smart investments over the years. The money had grown significantly, and now he wanted to ensure that I was taken care of. The lawyer laid out the details. The trust fund would provide me with a monthly allowance that would cover my living expenses and college tuition. The full amount would be available when I turned 25, but until then, I'd be financially secure. I didn't know how to react. Part of me felt guilty for accepting the money. Money that, in some way, felt like it was trying to make up for 2 years of silence. But another part of me was relieved. After everything I had been through, this was finally a chance to build a future that wasn't weighed down by my circumstances. I left that meeting with my head spinning. In the span of an hour, I reconnected with my dad, learned that he was dying, and found out I was financially secure for the foreseeable future. The roller coaster of emotions, shock, grief, guilt, even relief, swirled through me as I tried to grasp what had just happened. It felt surreal, like my life had taken a dramatic turn in the blink of an eye. After spending so long focused on survival, getting through each day, working full time, saving money, finishing school, I suddenly had more than I could ever imagine. But none of it felt like a win, not when it came at the cost of my father's impending death. Over the next few days, I moved out of Aunt Jo's place. As much as I had appreciated her kindness, the feeling of being an intruder had never really left me. I found a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was mine. That sense of independence was something I had craved for so long. It was the first real step towards building my own life. I immediately enrolled at the local community college. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to study yet, but Dad had encouraged me to follow my dreams. And I planned to transfer to a university once I had a clearer path forward. This was my opportunity to start fresh, to do things differently from how they'd been done before. In the meantime, I started visiting Dad regularly. He had been admitted to the hospice care, and I knew that time was running out. Our relationship was far from perfect. There was still a deep well of hurt that wouldn't easily disappear. Yet, as difficult as it was, we were both trying. I could see in his eyes that he regretted so much. Regretted not fighting harder, not seeing through Mom's manipulation sooner. The guilt weighed heavily on him, and that guilt mirrored my own. Each visit felt bittersweet, like we were trying to make up for the lost years, knowing all the while that our life together was rapidly shrinking. About a week after that first meeting with Dad, I received another unexpected call. This time, it was from Robert, my stepdad. He wanted to meet and discuss something important. My gut instinct was to say no. After everything that had happened, the way he and Mom had turned their backs on me, it felt like an unwelcome intrusion on my already overwhelming situation. But part of me was curious. What could he possibly have to say after all this time? Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop the next day. When I arrived, it wasn't just Robert waiting for me. Mom was there too, along with Jake, my younger brother. I hadn't seen any of them since I had been thrown out. The sight of them together, looking nervous and out of place, stirred up old emotions. I had expected this to be a one-on-one conversation with Robert, but now I was faced with my entire former family. Robert, usually so composed and sure of himself, looked uneasy. Mom kept glancing at me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. Jake, the youngest, sat quietly, clearly upset but not fully understanding the depth of everything going on. The tension was thick, and I braced myself for whatever they had come to say. Robert started talking first, and what he said left me stunned. He apologized, genuinely apologized. For the first time since he had entered my life, he was admitting that he had been wrong about me. He confessed that his own insecurities had driven his behavior, that he had manipulated Mom into believing that I was a threat to their new family. As he spoke, I watched Mom crumble, tears streaming down her face. She hadn't just been blind to what was happening, she had chosen to let it happen. Robert might have fueled her fears, but she had allowed it to go on because she was too consumed by her own happiness with him to notice the harm it was doing to me. Then Robert dropped a bombshell I never saw coming. He wanted to adopt me. He said he knew it couldn't erase the past, but he wanted to start fresh. He wanted to build the relationship we should have had from the beginning. I was speechless. After everything, after being cast out and treated like an outsider in my own family, here was the man who had played a huge role in that rejection, asking to legally and emotionally make me part of his family. Mom sat there, pleading silently with her eyes, and Jake, though quiet, looking like I was the missing piece they needed to be whole again. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was furious, still carrying the anger and resentment from how they had treated me. How could they expect me to just forget all of that and start over? But another part of me was tired of the conflict, tired of the estrangement. Deep down, a part of me longed for the family I thought I had lost. After everything with Dad, I was emotionally drained, and their sudden plea for reconciliation only added to the confusion. I told them I needed time to think, and then left the coffee shop feeling like my life had been turned upside down yet again. The days that followed were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I had my dying father trying to make amends and ensure my future. On the other hand, there was the family that had rejected me, now asking for a second chance. I felt pulled in two directions, each decision carrying the weight of my entire future. I spent more time at the hospice with Dad, knowing that our visits were becoming limited. His condition had worsened, and the doctors warned me that there wasn't much time left. Despite the sadness, I was grateful for these moments with him. We talked about everything, the past, the things he regretted, his hopes for my future. He urged me to pursue my dreams, to use the trust fund he had set up to create a life I could be proud of. As much as I appreciated his encouragement, I couldn't shake the sense of loss that hung over every conversation. This wasn't the life I had envisioned. As for Robert's offer of adoption, I remained torn. I spoke to Mom several times over the phone, and each time she was apologetic. She admitted to being blinded by her fear of being alone, and she promised to support whatever decision I made. It was hard to trust her words after everything, but I could hear the regret in her voice. Even Jake had reached out, texting me constantly, apologizing for not understanding sooner, begging me to come home. His messages were a bittersweet mix of innocence and desperation, tugging at my heart as I tried to figure out what to do. Robert had kept his distance after that initial meeting. He sent one email repeating his apology and offering to help pay for my college education, regardless of whether I accepted his offer to adopt me. It was a generous offer, but I wasn't sure how to feel about it. Accepting his financial support felt like complicity, like I was saying it was okay to buy back my trust. But at the same time, it was hard to turn down the help when it could ease my path forward. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still angry, hurt by how they had treated me, but another part of me longed for the family I had lost. Meanwhile, I'm also working with Dad's lawyer to sort out the details of the trust fund. The sheer amount of money still feels overwhelming, and I couldn't help but feel guilty. This financial security came at the cost of almost losing my father. The irony isn't lost on me. It's been 2 days since that meeting, and I'm torn. My bio dad is dying, and Robert, this man who ruined my life in so many ways, wants to adopt me. My mom claims she's sorry that she let her insecurities cloud her judgment. Jake, innocent in all of this, just wants his sister back. And then there's the trust fund. Do I even deserve it after everything? AITA for not wanting to be adopted by the man who broke apart my family, even though he's now trying to make amends? Should I forgive him and try to rebuild the life I've lost, or is it better to cut my losses and focus on my future without them? Update 1. Since that first meeting with the lawyer, I've been visiting Dad regularly at the hospice. Each visit feels more important than the last. Knowing time is running out, some days he's too weak to talk, and all I can do is sit by his bedside, watching him drift in and out of sleep. But other days, he's more awake and we talk about everything. Our past, my future, and whether or not I should reconnect with my family. I've been trying to make sense of all the chaos my life has become. One day, when Dad was having a better day, I felt I had to tell him about Robert's offer to adopt me. I'd been stuck on this decision for over a week, going back and forth in my mind, unsure of what to do. I wasn't sure how Dad would react to hearing that the man who had a role in him leaving my life now wanted to adopt me. I expected some kind of emotional reaction, but Dad stayed calm while I explained everything. His face didn't reveal much, just a quiet understanding that both comforted me and made me uneasy at the same time. After I finished, Dad took a deep breath and said something that stayed with me. He told me that no matter what I decided, he'd support me. But he also warned me, now that I had the trust fund, I had power. I wasn't just someone barely getting by anymore. I had financial security, and that kind of security attracted attention. He told me to be cautious, even with people close to me, like Mom, Robert, and Jake. His words made me realize how careful I needed to be, and I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that some people might be looking out for their own benefit, not mine. After that conversation, things became clearer. Dad's warning made me see why Robert had suddenly come forward with his offer to adopt me. It wasn't just about making amends, it was also about securing a place in my life and maybe even my financial future. The thought gave me chills. I'd been so focused on trying to rebuild my family that I hadn't even considered that Robert's intentions might not be as innocent as they seemed. In the days that followed, I started to notice small changes in how people acted. Jake, for example, had been texting me more, always asking about my apartment, how school was going, and when I'd visit. It seemed harmless at first, but something felt off. He kept bringing up Robert's adoption offer like he was trying to push me into thinking it was a good idea. It was odd, especially since Jake had never been all that involved in the family drama. Why was he suddenly so invested? Then there was Mom. She'd been calling more often too, apologizing over and over for how things had gotten so bad between us. But every time she apologized, the conversation would somehow turn to Robert and his generous offer. She'd talk about how hard Robert had been trying to make things right, how guilty he felt, and how he genuinely wanted me to be part of the family again. It felt like she was gently nudging me to accept the adoption, and that realization made me uneasy. I'm still trying to figure out how to move forward with all of this. The more I think about it, the more suspicious Mom and Robert seem. I can't shake the feeling that there's more going on here than just making amends. No matter what I decide, though, I'll definitely keep you all updated. You guys have been such a constant source of advice and support, and I am very grateful for that. Update 2. Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. First off, I want to say thank you for all the comments on my last update. I got a truckload of responses, and let me tell you, I'm really grateful for everyone who took the time to read my story. I saw a lot of comments saying I was being mooched off and that I was naive for not seeing what was obvious to others. I get what you guys are saying, but to me, my family has always been complicated. I wanted to believe that my mom would admit her mistakes, make things right, and we could go back to being a real family. But it wasn't long before something happened that confirmed Dad's suspicions about people's true intentions. One afternoon, I got a call from Aunt Jo, which was surprising because I hadn't heard from her since I moved out. She sounded frantic, asking if everything was all right and if I'd had any issues with my trust fund or lawyer. I was confused, so I asked her what she meant. That's when she dropped a bombshell. Someone had called the lawyer's office pretending to be me, trying to access information about my trust. Luckily, the lawyer caught on to the impersonation and shut it down before anything could happen. But it was clear. Someone was trying to mess with my finances. I was in shock. Who would do something like that? My mind immediately went to Robert. It seemed too convenient. He offers to adopt me and help pay for my education, and then suddenly someone's trying to get into my trust fund? But as I thought about it more, I couldn't rule out anyone, Jake, Mom, or even someone else I hadn't considered. Whoever it was, they had crossed a serious line. The next day, I went to visit Dad. His condition wasn't the best, but wasn't as bad as earlier either. I told him about the attempted breach of my trust, expecting him to be shocked, but he wasn't. He just nodded like he had been expecting this. He told me it was exactly what he had warned me about. He reminded me that money can change people, even those you think you know well. His advice was simple: protect myself and trust my instincts. Over the next few days, I took his advice seriously. I called my lawyer and put extra security measures on the trust fund, making sure no one could pull anything shady again. I also started to distance myself from Robert and Mom. Our conversations became more surface level. I avoided any discussions about the adoption or anything financial. I wasn't ready to confront them yet, but I needed space to figure out what to do next. The more distance I got, the clearer things became. Robert's sudden change of heart didn't seem as genuine anymore, and after the attempted breach, my suspicions were only growing. Jake, on the other hand, was acting strangely too. He kept texting me, asking random questions about my new apartment, school, when I'd come visit. But he would always find a way to bring up Robert's offer like he was subtly trying to convince me it was the right move. It didn't sit right with me. Why was he so invested? It felt like everyone had their own agenda and I was just a piece of their puzzle. Thankfully, on the brighter side, Dad's health hasn't been deteriorating like it was before. He's more stable now, but I know we still have a long road ahead. Even with this glimmer of hope, I can't ignore the reality of what's happening around me. Someone tried to access my trust fund, and it all happened right after Robert started pushing for adoption. I've come to realize I have to protect myself, even if that means distancing myself from people I once considered family. I now know what I need to do. Robert and Mom are lost causes, and I can't keep wasting my energy trying to be part of a family that was never really mine. As much as I love my little brother, it's clear he's either being manipulated or he genuinely believes that Robert is his new dad. Either way, I can't let that tie me down anymore. I have to look out for myself now. For now, though, I'm focused on what's more important, spending as much time as I can with Dad, and the rest will have to wait. Update 3. Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. It's been a whirlwind of events since I last posted, but I wanted to update you all and finally close this chapter of my life. First off, best news I could have asked for. Dad is doing better than before. He's still not out of the woods yet, but the improvement in his health has been a huge relief. We don't really talk much about the past anymore, but I think deep down, I've finally forgiven him. We're in a good place now, and that's something I didn't think was possible a few months ago. However, there are people I haven't forgiven, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. Robert and Mom have become nothing short of irritating. Their constant texts are never ending, always trying to pull me back into their web. Do they seriously think I'm clueless about what's going on? I know exactly what their angle is. And honestly, I've had enough. As many of you suggested in the comments, and with the support of Aunt Jo and Dad, I decided it was time to put an end to this mess once and for all. I needed a face-to-face conversation with them, not to reconcile, but to make things crystal clear. So I arranged a final meeting at their place, but I didn't go alone. I brought my lawyer with me for protection and to ensure everything was on the record. When I arrived, they immediately started with the sweet talk, trying to butter me up. But I wasn't there to play games. I shut it down quickly and got straight to the point. I knew about the call to the lawyer's office, and I knew what their true intentions were behind the adoption offer. They tried to act surprised, but it was obvious they weren't expecting me to be so direct. Some of you asked how exactly they thought adopting me would help them get access to the trust fund. Honestly, I don't know for sure either, but my best guess is that they planned to manipulate me once the adoption was finalized. Maybe guilt trip me into giving them money or controlling my decisions. Regardless, I made it clear that none of that was going to happen. I didn't give them a chance to start their excuses or crocodile tears. Before Mom could start her usual performance, I told them in no uncertain terms that they weren't getting a single penny from me. Not now, not ever. Before leaving, I did try to talk to Jake. I wanted to at least see if he was willing to have a conversation, but he made it clear he didn't want to. I guess he's still wrapped up in whatever version of reality they've spun for him. It hurt, but maybe we'll talk in future if he's ever ready to see things for what they are. For now, I'm moving forward with my life, I'm done with this toxic chapter and I feel lighter for it. I couldn't have done it without all of you, though. Your advice, your comments, and your support have meant the world to me. Thank you for getting me through this, for helping me see things clearly when I was lost. Here's to brighter days ahead. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.